In the spring of 1348, 300,000 people woke inside a modern city that had replaced a wheat field overnight, surrounded by a world that should have vanished centuries earlier. No rescue signal ever answered their calls. The first witnesses were farmers. They saw towers shining beyond their fields, a black road cutting through the earth, and windows reflecting a sky no mason could capture. None knew whether to pray, flee, or approach. Inside Larkhaven, phones still powered on, but networks, satellites, news, and maps had vanished. Beyond the final buildings, smoke from unfamiliar villages proved the impossible was real. The silence outside the networks felt more frightening than darkness. Mayor Lena Moravec converted City Hall into a command center. Her first orders were simple: secure water, count food, protect hospitals, and assume nobody was coming. Every hour lost would turn inconvenience into casualties. Security Chief Jonas Richter sealed every major road with buses, concrete blocks, and police vehicles, just as frightened villagers began gathering beyond the asphalt. Neither side understood whether the other carried salvation or disease. By afternoon, mounted scouts watched from the hills. They recognized walls, bridges, and crowded streets. Yet nothing in the city obeyed the rules of their world. Their report would decide whether the kingdom watched, traded, or attacked. King Edric heard the scouts' report without crossing himself. He heard of a treasury, a fortress, and a rival state that had appeared inside his realm. He immediately ordered more scouts, maps, and armed observation. Engineer Marcus Hale completed the first resource audit. Food would last weeks, fuel far less, and modern medicine only until the final sterile package was opened. The numbers proved that technology without supply chains was temporary. For one day, supermarket shelves still looked full. Then frightened residents began buying as if every loaf, battery, and bottle were the last shipment in history. Order survived, but trust in normal life disappeared instantly. The first blackout lasted 7 minutes. It was long enough for elevators to stop, hospital generators to start, and every apartment window to feel temporary. For many residents, that brief darkness became the true beginning. The first peaceful visitor was Brother Matthias, a young monk carrying a wooden cross, a blank notebook, and enough curiosity to approach the barricade alone. He expected demons, but found frightened people guarding concrete walls. Before diplomacy could begin, 2 scouts slipped into an abandoned loading yard and found steel doors, delivery trucks, and food packed in quantities no village could imagine. What looked ordinary to Larkhaven seemed impossibly rich to them. Then history arrived at the gate. Fevered families, blackened swellings, and abandoned carts told Dr. Sophia Keller exactly which year had found them. Modern knowledge had finally met the disease that shaped medieval Europe. Opening the gates could infect the city. Sending the sick away would condemn them. Sophia chose a third option and built quarantine outside the walls. It was compassion redesigned as distance, procedure, and guarded space. The treatment looked unimpressive: boiled water, separated patients, clean bandages, burned waste, and hands washed until medieval observers began calling the routine a ritual. The miracle was not a cure, but fewer preventable deaths. Matthias watched a child sit up after days of fever. Larkhaven had not defeated death, but it had made death less certain. Matthias understood that rules could accomplish what prayers often could not. When Edric learned that villages near Larkhaven were losing fewer people, the city stopped being an impossible curiosity. It became the most valuable institution in Europe. From that moment, Edric wanted not merely access but control. Larkhaven printed only what it considered safe: sanitation, food storage, measurement, simple pumps and repairs. Electricity, weapons, and political theory stayed locked away. The city believed careful limits could still protect the timeline. Marcus refused to build engines for kings. He taught villagers to cover wells, drain waste, and construct pumps simple enough to repair without the city. Each working pump reduced disease and increased dependence on new methods. Inside Larkhaven, every success made the argument worse. Some demanded total isolation, others believed refusing to help was simply choosing who would die. Survival had become a political argument with no innocent answer. Edric's banners appeared on the hills. He lacked the strength to storm Larkhaven, but he had enough men to watch every road and wait. Hunger, fear, and time became weapons more useful than swords. Edric's first attack came underground. Armed men entered a drainage channel, searching for the power station that made Larkhaven's walls more than stone. The infiltrators carried no grand plan, only directions toward electricity. Jonas captured the infiltrators before they reached the generators. The city avoided bloodshed, but the prisoners revealed that a larger assault was already moving. The map showed 3 roads converging on the eastern barricade. Larkhaven contained 1 territorial defense battalion, 2 armored vehicles, and ammunition that could never be replaced. For the first time, modern soldiers prepared to face knights. Their advantage was enormous, but every shot permanently reduced it. At sunrise, Edric's knights advanced behind wooden shields and siege carts, convinced that courage and numbers could close the distance before Larkhaven's thunder weapons answered. Behind them marched men who believed retreat would invite divine punishment. The collision lasted minutes. Armored vehicles blocked the road, flash grenades broke the first charge, and controlled gunfire struck the earth before the knights understood its range. The battlefield became a violent lesson in distance, noise, and fear. When several knights reached the barriers, Jonas ordered shields forward instead of automatic fire. Larkhaven won the battle by refusing to turn superiority into massacre. That choice preserved lives, but also exposed the city's restraint. By noon, the road was silent. Sophia's teams treated wounded soldiers from both centuries, while Edric's surviving knights watched their enemies save them. The sight unsettled both armies more deeply than the battle itself. The battle forced Lena and Edric to meet. Between floodlights and torches, each finally understood that destroying the other would also destroy what both needed. Each leader now understood the other as necessary, dangerous, and mortal. Their treaty was neither peace nor surrender. Larkhaven kept its core systems. Edric received clinics, teachers, trade, and knowledge selected by the city. Both sides accepted cooperation while quietly preparing for betrayal. The treaty's most important creation was an academy inside an abandoned monastery, where selected students learned sanitation, surveying, mechanics, and record-keeping. Its graduates would carry methods farther than any army could march. Soon, farmers could measure land, midwives could isolate infection, and craftsmen could copy standardized parts. The old order began changing from below rather than above. Knowledge altered status because competence could now be demonstrated publicly. Edric's nobles feared the academy more than Larkhaven's armored vehicles. A peasant with a pump was useful. A peasant with records could challenge ownership. Their fear was not machinery, but accountability spreading beyond noble control. Church authorities summoned Matthias. They did not deny the city's cures. They feared a world where suffering could be explained without their permission. Matthias realized institutions defend authority, even while accepting evidence. Trade replaced siege. Grain, wool, timber, and livestock entered Larkhaven. Soap, tools, medical care, and tightly controlled manuals moved outward. Dependence replaced hostility because neither economy could now function alone. Edric needed no rifles. Cleaner camps, measured roads, stored grain, and organized wagons allowed his medieval armies to march farther with fewer losses. Organization multiplied power more reliably than any single advanced weapon. Edric's victories sent thousands of refugees toward Larkhaven. Some fled plague, others fled the efficient kingdom the city itself had helped create. Larkhaven could close its gates, but not erase responsibility. Months after the panic, the supermarket was nearly empty. The shouting had vanished, replaced by measured portions, quiet lines, and the exhausted acceptance of permanent scarcity. The city still looked modern, though modern abundance had vanished. Larkhaven divided knowledge into public, restricted, and forbidden. The city that had rejected feudal power became the institution deciding who could know what. Its leaders justified control as protection, then forgot the distinction. 5 years later, the border had disappeared. Medieval carts rolled over repaired asphalt, stone workshops filled parking garages, and apartment towers glowed by candlelight. The hybrid city was no longer temporary, accidental, or reversible. Marcus lived to see production reorganized around water power, standardized parts, and repair guilds. Industrialization had begun without steam engines or factories. Efficiency emerged from repetition, measurement, and repairable mechanical standards.
The voice on the transmission speaks again, but this time, it is not warning them. It is welcoming them home.
The translation reveals Sophander was not buried by time, but sealed away deliberately, its people erased from history as if they had never existed. But the deeper they dig, the more the past resists them, maps shift, coordinates change, and every new discovery seems to erase what came before it. Among the buried records is a name they recognize, Dr. Elena Maris's own, written in an ancient script that predates any known civilization. The team splits, some want to push forward and uncover the truth, others fear what might be waiting beyond the threshold that has not been crossed in centuries. As they step through the archway, their equipment fails entirely, no signals, no power, just silence and the weight of something watching from within. Inside the city, they are not alone, shadows move where there should be none, and echoes of voices whisper their names in a language that feels both foreign and familiar. The deeper they dig, the more Sophander resists, not with force, but by rewriting its own history before their eyes. Carved into the stone at the heart of Sophander is an unmistakable warning, written not in any known language, but in their own voices. Dr. Maris hesitates at the threshold, her hand hovering over a lever that could seal the city behind them forever, or open something they are never meant to see. As they move deeper into Sophander, their reflections begin to shift, no longer mirroring them, but showing versions of themselves they never knew existed.